Welcome to VTubing 104 Essentials of OBS Setup. I'm Professor Lumio, and in this course we're going to be doing an OBS setup from scratch. It's going to go through all the basics you need to get your stream up and running, like audio, scenes, as well as installing your VTuber into OBS. So let's jump straight into OBS and get it set up for our assistant instructor, Lancelot. First, we need to install OBS. So head to obsproject.com and choose your operating system right on the homepage. Once the program is installed, just run the auto configuration wizard. It'll be the first thing it asks if you want to do. Now, if you already have a Twitch account, go ahead and connect it at that time. It'll just have you log in. But if you've been following these courses step by step, you may not have your Twitch account set up yet, and that's okay. Just skip this for now and we'll come back to it. All right, we're now in OBS. The very first thing we want to do is get our basic hardware connected, like our microphone. So we can jump down here to settings. You can also find settings under file settings. And in here, there's a lot we can ignore. So let's go straight to audio. In audio, select your mic. You can also choose a voice mod if you use one. In this same section, you can also set up desktop audio. For brand new streamers, I do think this is a good idea to start with. The reason is it's super straightforward and simple. Everything you hear, your stream hears. So you would go to desktop audio and click default and save. Now, the reason we're not going to do that is because long term, you're going to want to use separate audio captures. What that means is you're going to have more control over the volume and what is saved to your VOD for different audios like music, your game sounds, and any other programs that produce some kind of sound. All we need to do now is just have our mic connected. I'm going to hit OK. Now, every single one of these boxes you can drag and move around, so find a layout that you like. I prefer having my audio mixer in the left side here, and I also click this box to change the layout. This lets me see my audio a little easier, and when I have a lot of sources, which we will, it makes them easier to view and manage. A couple quick tips on audio is if you need to just mute something, click the icon here, and if you need to hear yourself, you can click this button here. We're going to get into more advanced mic settings in future videos, but a couple things to look out for right out of the gate are in your Windows settings under System, Sounds, and your mic's specific properties. Ensure your input volume is all the way up. If this is low, you're never going to be able to get to the volume you need to for clear streaming audio. The second thing is any physical dial you have on your microphone that can control the volume. If after doing both of those things, including positioning the mic in the optimal place, you can also go to settings and increase the volume directly here in the advanced audio properties. Now let's talk about the difference between scenes and sources. Think of a scene like a Hollywood studio soundstage. You have all these different big buildings. You can picture the celebrities driving around in the go-karts going from each one. Your scenes are your big warehouses. These will fit different themes, different uses, so think of them as a whole space. Within each scene, you have your sources. This is your stage and your props. Things like your backgrounds, items, lighting, all the things that go into what you actually see are individual sources. Now we're ready to add our scenes. So let's add these 5 scenes. Stream starting, just chatting, screen sharing or gaming, BRB, and stream ending. To add a new scene, click the plus icon in the bottom left, or you can right-click and choose Add Scene. You can also duplicate a scene by right-clicking on an existing scene if you want to keep any of your sources from a previously created scene. Now, one tip about naming your scenes is instead of just naming them something like Stream Starting, you can keep it a bit more organized and avoid a common mistake, which is if you start it with a letter, pressing that letter will switch to that scene. This is not ideal while you're live if you don't intend on switching to that scene. So I like to do 2 things. The first is a numbering system just to make it easier to recognize which scene I want to switch to. And the second is using an emoji or symbol to protect you from pressing that key. So in this case, if I press 0, it would switch to that scene. For symbols and emojis, my go-to site is emojicombos.com. Let's type in bunny for Lancelot, and I'll just grab this bunny emoji. So we'll paste that here and hit OK. And then we'll go through and create the rest of our scenes. Now that we have our scenes set up, let's add our background videos. Make sure you have the scene you want to edit selected, and under sources, hit this plus, and we'll choose media. If you have a static background, use image. We're going to name this starting soon We'll click Browse Our Files. In our Stream folder, choose the OBS folder we created, and this is where we saved our background videos. I'll choose Starting Soon, and make sure you check Loop, as well as Close File when inactive. Now you'll notice the video is not the full width. That's because my monitor is a 2K monitor, and this is a 1920 by 1080 video. I'm just gonna use the hotkey Control F, that snaps it full screen, and I like to lock my screens if it's something I don't want to accidentally drag and move around once I've positioned it how I want it. Now when you're setting up multiple scenes, it's good to understand how copy and pasting works. If I copy this source and go to a new scene and paste it, I can only paste this one as a reference. Now, when you can paste as a duplicate, it creates a new source that you can edit safely. But with references, they're still tied to the original copied source. So if I were to edit this video to my just chatting screen, and I go back to my stream starting screen, it actually changed it there as well. So what we want to do is delete this and create a new source from scratch. We'll choose the just chatting video, loop, close file, okay. Control F, lock. Let's go back to our just chatting screen and fix the one we broke. I'll do the same for BRB and stream ending. All right, and now we have our 4 background videos. For our screen sharing, this one's going to be a little different because we want to display what we're streaming. The 2 main ways to do this are using a game capture or display capture. Now, most people will tell you to use a game capture for video games because it is more optimized, ensuring your stream stays a little smoother. However, I do use display capture, and the reason for this is game capture can be a little bit more to manage and it can cause a few more issues. So personally, I just like to avoid the headache and say, I'm gonna record whatever is on this screen. It's also good if you just want one scene for drawing art, or if you're doing things in a browser like YouTube or TikTok. So I'll do display capture first, and I leave that as automatic, and we'll just choose the monitor we wanna show. In this case, it's showing OBS. To add a game capture, we'll create that source, click capture audio. You can decide if you want it to capture your cursor or not, and then hit OK. Now, once we launch a game, we're going to want to make sure that's assigned to the right game. When we use the checkbox capture audio in our game capture source, it adds a source to the mixer over here. That's going to allow game sounds to also come through. But if you use the display capture, you'll need to manually add an audio capture. Let's head back to our just chatting screen and we'll set up audio for music. I'm going to hit plus on the sources and do application audio capture. We'll call this Opera GX Music. Opera GX is a separate browser that I use just for music, but you could use any browser or desktop app like Spotify. I like to keep this separate from my main browser, Google Chrome, because if I'm ever playing something on Google Chrome, I don't have to have that audio playthrough stream. Having a separate source for audio also gives you more control over the volume as well as what we send to the VOD, since we're going to want to separate that to avoid any retroactive copyright strikes. Under Window, we'll choose Opera GX, which is currently playing Lo-Fi Girl. I'm going to turn this down slightly. And audio is the one source you can put behind your background because there's no visual aspect. Let's copy and paste this to our other scenes. Now that we know that works, I'm going to pause the music. While we're working on our audio, let's head back into the settings. From there, we're going to go to Output and change Simple to Advanced. Once we've selected Advanced, under Streaming, there's the option Twitch VOD Track. We're going to check this box and have it assigned to 2. Once you have that checked, press OK. In the audio mixer, open your advanced audio properties. Now under Tracks, we're going to take our music source and unselect 2. What this means is track 1 is what your stream will hear, but track 2 is what will be sent to the VOD. So on stream, we're going to hear the mic, the game sounds, and your music, but the VOD will only have mic, game sounds. Now it's time to add our VTuber model. Let's start with the PNGTuber setup. First, let's open Veadotube Mini on our computer. Here's the PNGTuber we created for Lancelot, and we'll just minimize this. Now that Veadotube Mini is open, we're going to add a game capture source. We'll call this Veadotube Mini, and we're going to specifically capture Veadotube Mini. We also want to allow transparency, and that's it. Hit OK. Now with PNGTubers, you can't really move them around, so we actually have to move the source. So what I'm going to do is position Lancelot on this scene where I want them. I think that's pretty good. And we'll go ahead and lock that. The only other scene that we have that we want our PNGTuber on is our screen sharing gaming scene. Now what we're going to do is we're going to copy this source. And in this case, it's actually okay to use a reference source. So if I were to paste this reference, I can actually resize it since I'm not changing the files or what it's capturing. For screen sharing, I'm going to make Lancelot smaller and put him in the bottom corner. We can go maybe slightly larger than that. I think that right there is pretty good. Now when I switch back and forth, the position of the VTuber matches where we want them on the scene. Now let's get our live 2D model added to OBS. So boot up VTube Studio like I've had, and then minimize the window. We'll hide our PNGTuber for now, and then let's add another game capture source. We'll call this one VTube Studio. Capture a specific window, and instead of Veadotube Mini this time we'll choose VTube Studio. Select Allow Transparency again, and then hit OK. Now, if you're using the free version of VTube Studio, do not stretch the screen to crop out the watermark like this. Unlike PNGTubers, you can move your model around in VTube Studio. So I recommend having your VTube Studio source stretched to the full width of your screen for every scene. When you crop your source and your model is too high, you end up cutting your head off. So I keep that full screen at all times. I will go ahead and lock that. Back in VTube Studio, under hotkeys, you can add a move model hotkey and record the position of your model to quickly move them around. I'm currently working on a Google Drive folder called Lumio's shared streaming stuff. There's not a whole lot in there right now, but it does have something I created called the alignment grid for OBS. I'll link to this folder in the description, but we're gonna go in here and grab this. I'm gonna drag and drop the PNG directly into my sources, and I'm also going to arrange it to go right in front of my background video. I'm going to press Ctrl F and lock it. Now with VTube Studio open on a second screen, I can move my model, scale them down, and put them in the position I want. The alignment grid helps me find the horizontal, vertical, and true center of the screen. That position looks good. So in VTube Studio, I'm going to click Record Position. I'm going to name this Move Centered. Give it a hotkey. Then in here, I don't have to switch scenes to know roughly where I want in my gaming scene. I go there, bottom right. One of my favorite move models is to do a dramatic zoom. So I'm going to call this one Move Zoom. Start in my center position and then scroll up. Do something like that, maybe slightly smaller. Now we can move our model around screen without changing the source and never having any part of our model cut off. Once that's set up, we can either delete or just hide the alignment grid. We'll copy our VTube Studio source, paste it onto our gaming scene, and lock it. Now when I switch, I just use the hotkey to move my model. We have the basics of OBS set up, but there's one more thing that's important to cover even for new streamers, and that's your bitrate. So think of it like this. You stream content such as chatting or gaming or art. OBS takes that content from your PC and packages it into a happy little box. OBS then takes that box and delivers it to Twitch. Your bitrate is kind of like how large that box is. The larger the box, the more room it has to fit the highest quality version of your stream. Big boxes are heavy, so they take more effort to deliver. By default in OBS, your bitrate is set at 6,000. Now this is the maximum quality you can stream on Twitch at 1080p and 60 frames per second. I think for most streamers, especially just starting out, it makes sense to prioritize stability, so I recommend lowering that to 4000 or 3000. That's still high definition at 720p, and you're still getting between 30 and 60 frames per second. If you don't have the best internet connection or you have a bit of an older PC, you can lower that as much as 2500, but I don't recommend going any lower than that. To change your bitrate, in your OBS settings, go to Output, and then in the encoder settings section, your bitrate is found here. If your PC is handling it extremely well, you can always raise your bitrate anytime. There are quite a few additional optimizations in OBS to improve performance that we'll be covering in later videos. So here's your homework for this course. In OBS, set up your mic and audio sources. Then set up all the scenes you want to use and any backgrounds for those. Connect your model, whether that's a PNGTuber or a live 2D model in VTube Studio, and then adjust your bitrate to the level that you think is a good starting point. If you want to follow along with all the checklist items from these courses, we have a complete channel setup checklist. I'll drop the link below for that Google Sheet.